Hey class, I am recording this. It's super late, but I promised to get back to you, and I'm finally feeling almost better. As you know, if you've been listening or watching my little bits of emails or posts from either today, I was not feeling well at all earlier this week. In fact, starting Sunday night, afternoon, and then evening, I thought it was just some motion sickness because of being in the mountains on Sunday. Came home, was planning on doing my updates and starting some grading, and I wasn't feeling well. And I woke up Monday morning and I was feeling really, really not well. And by the afternoon, I was in the hospital. And so I'm back home, kind of figured out what was going on, but now I'm having a little bit of complication from one of the procedures, and I'm having to lay flat. So I won't be on campus this week, but I am doing work and I'm going to be grading and catching up with everything. So I wanted to take a minute here to do this little message, let you know you can totally do this. I know that the proposal and the budget is a hard part of the class, but you totally got this. I want to provide you with a little bit of notes, some reminders, some clarifications, and some updates on last week as well as this week of class. So weeks 5 and 6, which is the remainder of your Module 3 stuff. So that's the plan for this. So first of all, just some of the stuff related to week 5, which was last week. I know that a couple of you are on a different schedule, so you haven't quite got to week 5, but most of the class, you are on week 6 this week. And so last week you finished this stuff. You would have went in and you would have finished the candid video, the introduction to project budgets. You would have also done the Grants 101 grant budgeting piece as well. That was all a part of the Nearpod. And you would have finished up the module notes, because the module notes from week 4 was related to proposal stuff. Week 5 was related to budgets. Once you were done with budgets, you could turn it in. And then you also did the discussion, and the discussion had a little bit of answering on both things. I have not graded the notes or the discussion yet because, again, I was going to start those on Sunday night and Monday, and I got sick. So I will be working on those in the next 2 days, but as a reminder, those should be finished and submitted as of last week and done. If for some reason during weeks 4 and weeks 5 you kind of scrimped on doing the Nearpod, on really reading or watching the candid stuff, looking through the grants management stuff, you will struggle with week 6. And I'm not saying that to be mean, it's just true, right? Because week 6 is when you have to pull it all together and actually apply what you looked at and learned and heard in the Nearpod and doing the notes, and you have to prepare your own narrative and you have to prepare your own budget. So if you are really, really struggling, it could possibly be because you didn't do your due diligence during week 4 and 5. And so you might need to go back into those materials that I gave you, or those candid or grants management stuff, and double check, what do I do here? What does this look like here? So hopefully, though, you have all the tools. You just need a little bit of clarification and help from me in order to get your drafts done for week 6. So I'll go on to week 6 next. So my week 6 has something you weren't able to see, and it's the Zoom meeting. I had planned to host a Zoom meeting early in the week for week 6 so that I could alleviate any questions right up front. But obviously, as we all know, that didn't happen because I got sick. And so it's still in there because I want it for future versions of this class to remind myself that you all are going to need my help early in week 6. But we didn't have that, and so I'm pushing things back a little bit. But generally speaking, week 6, you don't have any new materials. There's no new Nearpod. There's no slides. There's no videos. There's no training things. It is the stuff from weeks 4 and 5 that you are then applying in week 6, right? So if you want to look for where do I go back to help me, you go back to proposal stuff from week 4 or budget stuff from week 5, okay? So nothing else new. But your job during week 6 is to, again, pull that stuff together. Hopefully you were working on it. I kind of suggested it the previous weeks that you start working on it. But if not, you've got the week, or you've had the week to be working on your narrative as well as a budget, a draft of them, right? Because you're going to do a peer review, and then during week 8, you have a chance to resubmit all these materials as a final project with my comments as well as your peer comments to help you make it even better. But the two things you're submitting are a proposal narrative, right? So a typical grant proposal, as you've learned, isn't just the narrative, but the narrative is the biggest part. And the narrative has several pieces to it. And then a proposal also has a budget. So I'm having you submit those as 2 separate things. And there are help documents for each thing, which I will show you in a second. I originally wanted those to be submitted today, would have been great, and then the review done by Friday. However, I will have you submit the drafts. Again, it's not perfect, final, perfect. It's a good draft. Submitted by Friday, and your reviews done sometime before Monday morning, because I'll start looking over them Monday during the day, or probably the afternoon, but by Monday morning. Okay, so those are the 2 things you're turning in this week. Your draft for each and your review for each. And again, I've got documents built in through these links to help you with both. Now, one of the things that I want to clarify, which I think is probably pretty confusing because 2 of you have asked me about it, is that this is an extension of what you started with your letter of inquiry. So if for your letter of inquiry, you started using the example of the Pueblo Department of Public Health and Environment and the Communities That Care program, and you found a specific type of grant, and you, in your letter, wrote about a certain example project that you would use that grant for, you are continuing that in your narrative and your budget. So there will be some things that you can pull from what you already did in your letter of inquiry into your narrative and into the budget. That is absolutely true and something you can do. Also, an important thing to remember is that maybe in your letter of inquiry it was a bit off, you weren't quite right, but then I gave you some feedback in my grading, I gave some video feedback to the whole class, you got some peer review. So based on that, you could then use that information to help you for your narrative and your budget. Okay, so don't start a whole new project or a whole new idea for your narrative or your budget. Base it off of what you did for your letter of inquiry. You also can still use information from the boilerplate from, the community health center or the health department, and you can copy and paste what you need to. You are still going to use information from those links that I gave you to the programs themselves, or any other information you can find online about those programs. And whatever grant you were going to apply to originally, this time you're just using the Colorado Common App. It's just a format. It's not a specific grant application. It's a format that many different foundations in Colorado use for when you ask for money from them. They'll use that kind of format, the Colorado Common Grant format. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to jump over and show you some of the links, right? So I'm going to click, this link is the folder you've already seen with the boilerplate and the 2 different scenarios. I'm going to click over and show you and talk about the folder with the narrative templates and examples. All right, the first folder has a couple of things. First, it shows you 2 examples of full proposals, and you can use those. And even though it's a full proposal, you can look at the part that's their narrative and see the way they crafted it. They're different, and that's okay. But you can use that as an example to kind of help you. And then I also have this thing called writing guides. So if you click into the writing guides, you'll be able to see what you're going to use for the peer review, but also a template and then a template without things in it, right? So if I click on this one, oopsies, you can't see all of it, but it talks about the narrative, the core of the application. It describes each piece of that narrative. Again, some of this you're going to be able to pull right off the boilerplate, like organizational background or general organizational goals. But current program, you could, and some of those you will find as well, other programs that the agency is doing. But then here you're going to talk specifically about the two programs, right? Either the Nurse Family Partnership or CTC program. And so again, you're using this as a guideline of what you're putting. Some of it you might have done for your LOI, some of it you see from the boilerplate, but you're using kind of these pieces to help you. And then of course, this one is just those things without all the words in it, right? So these are the sections you're going to provide for your proposal narrative. And then clicking over to the other one is the budgets. So for the budgets, let me make this a little bit, there we go. That's how much I can have you see. I've got two examples again, which you have seen, but these give you just an example of kind of what people put, what things they include, right? The peer review one is here as well, but then you've got two templates. So the first one is just the blank one, and it shows you things that are usually included. And then I have this one with notes, right? And so these things are kind of crossed out because these are things that I would not expect you to be able to have or to know. And so I just wanted to make sure no one thought they had to provide that information to me at all. So as you can see here, it's basically asking for two things. It's asking for your project or program budget. So for Communities That Care and the grant that you're requesting, or for Nurse Family Partnership and the grant that you're requesting, what is your budget? What are you going to need? What are you going to be doing for that year or that period of time, right? What income will you have? What expenses will you have? And what's your justification for the expenses? The justification is just a simple explanation, right? You've got some guidance based on what you learned from the materials last week, but it'll be things like explaining staffing, right? So $18,000 to pay for a part-time staff person over the course of 1 year of the project, up to 10 hours a week, something like that, like an explanation. And then it also has a section that talks about overall sources of income for the agency. You're going to do your best here and try to utilize the information that you've been given for the two agencies and try to fill this out. You don't have to have, if it isn't there, you can make this up to the best of your ability, right? And in general, you can pick ballpark numbers or make up numbers that seem realistic based on what you know of the program or of the agency. And again, going back to this one, it's just a reminder, the two things you're giving me are the program budget and the overall agency budget, with just a link to the financials, and then this percentage here, this table of percentages. Those are the two big things. So again, I guess my biggest notes are that nothing is due tonight. hopefully you know that, and I think you know that. It won't be due until Friday. It's just a draft. You will get a peer review. You'll get my review, and we'll be